There has been some confusion surrounding the identities of two of the passengers. Malaysia Airlines saying that there is an Austrian passenger and an Italian passenger on board this missing jet. But Austria and Italy are denying that because of the issue of passports once stolen or lost and possibly replaced. Explain to us what's going on here.
Right, that's the big question that investigators have, and it's something that people are really zeroing in on here. If indeed those passports were lost and stolen, were they reported lost and stolen? The authorities are saying that they were. So the question now becomes, how did someone get on board this Malaysia Airlines plane with these documents that should not have been valid? This is a question that investigators really want to get to the bottom of. And so how will they get to the bottom of this at this point? Because as I speak to you, this plane is still categorized as missing, Fred. So, I spoke with one expert, and he says one of the major points of access or points of information for investigators is going to be going back to that airport. They're going to want to see surveillance video from these airports. Who went through that security line? Who got on this plane? Who was using that passport to get onto this flight if it was not indeed a valid passport? That will be a part of the investigation. We do know that from our correspondents here in the D.C. Bureau, our national security correspondent, Jim Sciutto, did reach out to the State Department, and the U.S. officials, they are aware of this, and they say that they are looking into this issue, Fred. But this investigation is going to be huge. It's not only about who were these two people who got on with these alleged, invalid passports, but there's so much more to this. They're not only going to want to know who was on the plane, but they're also going to want to know what was on the plane, what kind of cargo was being carried in the belly of the plane. So they're going to want that cargo manifest. Was there undeclared hazardous materials that may have caused an issue here? They're going to be working that angle while simultaneously looking at the maintenance records of this plane as well, Fred. I mean, this investigation is going to be so complex. You just mentioned off of the top the search area, the rescue teams. They're focused on over the water right now. So that's what will make this investigation so very complex, because their search focus is over the sea. So much more complex than what we saw in Oceana, the most recent 777 disaster that happened in San Francisco. I mean, when you think about the geographic locations here, Oceana was on land. It was in the U.S. It was at an airport. It was not in a remote area. In a matter of hours, we saw investigators. They were on the scene, and they were already collecting evidence. But in this incident, it's still a big mystery. They still haven't even been able to locate the plane or the passengers at this hour. So with the focus, and if the focus truly turns out to be over water, and if it turns out to be that kind of investigation, the tough task, Fred, is going to be finding the wreckage. They're going to need sonar equipment just to locate where this wreckage was. The most important piece of evidence is going to be what people often call those black boxes, the data recorders. There is no telling how long that could take. When you look at Air France, Flight 447, that went down in the Atlantic. They did not find those recorders for nearly 2 years later. So that just goes to show how complex this possibly
and so the difference in, say, that Air France flight, when the depths were very great, whereas here in the South China Sea, if it did go down in the area that at least Vietnamese authorities seem to believe right now, it's much more shallow water. Detecting that ping in that plane might be a little bit easier. Is it your understanding that, Renee, the reason why the NTSB would be involved in this because there are 3 Americans on board, or is it simply the interest of any airline that would go down in any part of the world that the NTSB would want to be part of the investigation?
Right. So, Fred, we were in contact with the NTSB yesterday, and their official comment is that they're closely monitoring the situation. They haven't said that they're officially participating in the investigation. That being said, we do believe that they will be participating in the investigation. There's a few things that come into play here. Mm-hmm. The airplane, the Boeing 777, it was manufactured here in the United States. So, you know, the NTSB would want to know exactly what happened here. If it had something to do with the plane, they would have an interest in learning what the factors here were as far as this crash goes. Also, you know, I spoke to several experts who bring up the point of, in this region, they may not necessarily have the same kind of resources that the United States has when it comes to investigating this sort of crash. So usually what would happen is the bigger country with more money and more resources would step in to really take a really prominent role in this investigation. So again, we do expect, although we haven't heard that a team has been sent there as yet, we do expect that the NTSB will be investigating or in some way be a part